themselves, and these issues occur outside of the school. They occur in our homes and they occur in our community. So it behooves us as a community to address them at that level and not just leave it to our schools. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and give a quick layout of the evening, especially for the people who are watching at home, so you know what to expect, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. We've divided this into 3 sections. The first section is going to be kind of a state of the union of what's happening in Radnor. We're going to hear from the assistant principal of Radnor Middle School, Esther Purnell, and she's going to give us a brief synopsis of what's going on at the middle school. Then we're going to hear from Haley Butler, who is in the administration of the high school, and she's going to tell us what's going on at the high school. Then we're going to shift gears a little bit and hear from 2 groups in neighboring townships. Most of us have learned that in almost all of our surrounding communities, they have community coalitions like the one we're considering. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've done a lot of research and reached out to other groups to see what might work here. And 2 of those groups are here tonight, and we have Ellen Muller and Jean Braun from ARCH, which is in TA. And then we're going to hear from Christina Valaki, who is from the Westchester area communities that care. And they're going to give us an idea of how they're approaching this problem. Then finally, we're going to shift gears again and have more of an open discussion about how we would like to approach this in Radnor. We're going to have 5 of the people that have spent some time on this over the last few years and kind of lead and kickstart the discussion, but we hope it's going to be a group discussion because we have a lot of important stakeholders in this audience. We have people here from our school district, we have our superintendent here, we have people here from the township, we have the head of our Board of Health, 2 commissioners, our Sergeant Block from our police. We have representatives from the Radnor Educational Foundation here. We have some business community leaders here. We have some private school people here. So it's a good mix tonight to get the conversation going at a community level. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and ask Esther Purnell to stand up and get us started talking about the middle school. Thanks.
Good evening. That was pretty interesting. Everybody breathe so I can get through this. I need your smiling faces. It's good to be here tonight. I do want to point out a few people who have been very helpful. Help us at the middle school to sort of wrap our arms around the drug and alcohol task force that takes place. I'm Elaine Schaefer, Lori Landu, Robin Hinken, Ellen Lair, Joy Antonopoulos, and Christy Suggs. God, I'm messing your name up. Shug, thank you so much. Sugar, thank you. We appreciate you all. These are our parents. Our drug and alcohol task force is also made up of teachers from each grade level, administration, and our counselors. About 3 years ago, there was a task that was put before me to sort of bring some order to, not order, but a new focus that was more middle school oriented, trying to get some information from our students to try to see where they were in regards to drug and alcohol and some other behaviors that may not be so positive and choices that they were making. 3 years ago, we were able to create a survey, which you will see to the left and the right of me, that we administered. Once we got the survey together, we administered it spring of '08, fall of '08, and the spring of 2009, which would be our current 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. From that, it was administered through our PE and health staff, who also, again, and even though it's not these students took this particular test, the survey, when they were 7th graders, but we still feel that it's relevant. We probably will not give the survey again for probably another year, more than likely another year. So what our PE and health staff are doing is taking this specific information, and when they meet with the students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, of course, making it developmentally appropriate and showing them some of the statistics and how it relates to the curriculum that they are teaching at that particular time. So with all the testing and everything that's taking place, they're going to be doing that in May. All right. With that said, I want to show you about 12 slides. As you can see that the numbers, by the time we administered the test about a year ago, we had 438 students. our PE and health staff, it took about 20 minutes to administer the test, and it was computerized. Also, Joan Casano was very instrumental in helping us to get this online for the students to take the test. All right, interesting slide. I'm going to go to this particular one, which we found was interesting. Do you have someone who you feel you can trust and who you are comfortable in speaking with? And for most of the students during all 3 administrations, it was school personnel, so we felt pretty good about that. Another one on 8, do you have access? Do you or your friends have access to weapons? So there are about 12 categories that we asked the students questions about, which you can sort of scan and see what the results were. Yes, they have access, and it wasn't limited to just a knife or a gun. We were trying to make it broad enough to try to get an idea of the weaponry that the children can access or not access. If I'm moving too fast, you let me know. I want to try to stay within my time frame. This was interesting, harming themselves. There were, as you can see, there were a few students who said, yes, I have thought about it. There were even a couple of students who even said, yes, I've even thought about a plan. What was a little disturbing, we also have shared the results with our PTO, at our PTO, usually in the fall, October, for parents that are interested. Also, we keep a hard copy of the full, all 54 pages of the survey results in our main office. We can't let you take it, but you are welcome to we can give you a private spot and you can view it. So that is still open for anyone who would like to take additional time to review some more of the particulars. What was a little interesting with the school staff, and they were a little alarmed because they said, how are we going to find out the students? But we said if we put names to it, we may even get less results that may not be as significant. The next slides, 12, deals with the topic of smoking. For the majority, most of them said, not interested, I don't want to do it. But yet, some have tried. And they got them from a person who was 18 or older, or some other way. All right, I'm going to flip to the next slide, which is, pardon me, most of the students do not say that they didn't have an interest in the alcohol, but yet we do have some, which you'll see on the next few slides, that have had alcohol. Just going to flip through a couple of these. And 3 survey times here. And then 21. This one says that in most places that they've acquired the drugs or the alcohol has been at a social gathering. So that's an interesting point. The next 2 slides deal with the marijuana use. Again, most have not, but some have tried or have been offered. And the next slide, which sort of categorizes it. We intentionally made it as low as 8 years old because we wanted to see where some children, as young as it can be, to get a representation of children that young that just may be participating in some of the behaviors. So, prescription drugs, I'm going to skip forward here. Was sniffing. Interesting, 7th grade was the highest. And then prescription drugs. Small number, but yet some are using it without parental permission or adult knowledge. All right, I'm going to skip. Sorry, for the drinking. Notice the first without a guardian present, and then spring of '09. larger number of students, and a larger number that participated. And then a summary. All right. You ready? We have to. As you can see, here are the students, those that have actually participated in sexual activities through the intercourse, and then we even asked a question about the oral sex as well. So I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but we have to have these open discussions so that we will know what direction that we need to move in. And then you will see that some of the students, when I flip to the next slides, have participated without any type of protection. Summary, 10 or younger. Yeah, it's getting hot in here. See some of y'all fanning. Again, another summary. See the third bullet? And then look at Spring '08 at the bottom. Now remember, this was a year ago. And then this one in particular. All right. Numbers again. Couple more slides. And then we asked the question, where was it likely to occur? And the time of day that it took place. Here it is. Home. Someone's home. That was '08, fall of '08, at a party. And then '09, I believe, was again at the party. Then the time of day. There's another slide. Again, most haven't that participated in the survey, but there are those that are still choosing. And we're hoping that the students are being honest. But, we're still looking good, but we have a ways to go. Each one reach one. And then lastly, we just asked a few questions about how active are students, and we know in our society of lack of activity or even obesity and adolescent obesity, we're trying to still focus. Can we keep our students moving? Can we keep them active towards healthy lifestyles? The activity. And texting doesn't count as activity. One more slide. Thank you for your attention.
Next, we're going to hear from Haley Butler, who is in the guidance department at our high school, and if you can beat that, go for it.
Well, I'm actually in administration. That's quite all right. I used to be a guidance counselor. 7 years prior to taking this job, I worked in guidance counseling at a neighboring school district, and I also specialized in drug and alcohol counseling at that district, and that's part of my background. So last summer, Mr. Skellinger, who is here this evening, our principal at the high school, we sat around and we talked about changing up some roles at the high school. So Jeff Smith and I made a change. I took over drug and alcohol task force. He got PSSA testing. I did a little dance. I think I won. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure this year to work with a phenomenal group of women who have come in with such passion, and they're all here tonight sitting in the front row. Elaine and Christy and Jen and Ellen and Sarah and Joy and Christy Rowland, I think she's here as well, have really been an integral part in starting at the high school a little over again. We're reinventing the wheel, per se, to some degree, with what's been happening prior to 2 to 3 years ago. And we're starting a little bit slower. So I don't have a official nationally normed survey to share with you. We did do a survey this year at the high school, but it was created about 3 years ago with some students and with the help of the former Drug and Alcohol Task Force. And we really used it to help kick off a program called Walls and Stalls, which was done a few years back as well. And the point of that program was created by one of the counselors, Lynn Blair, who is not here with me this evening. And what it is we're trying to educate our students on the positives, because we know that the peer pressure at the middle and the high school levels can really seem to be everybody. Everybody's doing it, Mom. But everybody else did it too. And everybody said, and everyone is. And the reality of that is what we found is that's not the case. And we want the students to understand that not everyone is doing that. And so what we started is, with the percentages that we took from the in-house survey that we did, is we've created flyers, and these will be hung all over the school in the bathrooms where the kids spend time. And that's why it's called Walls to Stalls. And what it is it basically lists, for example, 88.6% of our Radnor high school students do not smoke cigarettes. But if you ask our students, they'll tell you perception is everybody's doing it. But when they were surveyed anonymously, 88.6% do not. 64% have never had alcohol. And at the high school, for the size that we are, we're right along with national norms as to what the experimentation levels are. It's not perfect, and we'd like to decrease it. We'd like this to be 85% have never tried alcohol, 90%, and we'd like to make those leaps and bounds as we go through. But really, what we're looking at now is we felt as though we were right where the national average is and have the ability to really make some impact on students by focusing on the positive. And I'm going to talk a little bit about things that we've done at the high school this year to focus on that. We all know that we had a rough year last year, and that's not something that we can hide or that we can run from. And I will commend Mr. Skellinger for really taking it head on, for making the focus of this year not only with the faculty but also with the students as far as balance. Balance between your academic and your social life. Balance between your family life and your friends. Balance in everything that you do. And also making it very okay to ask for help. And that's something that I think we pride ourselves on at the high school, where that culture is changing little by little. With speakers such as Jordan Burnham, who came in at the beginning of the year to talk about his experience with his attempted suicide. And he was very candid and open, and he spoke not only to the parent body, but student body, he also spoke with our parents. With the unfortunate tragedy that Rick Dunlap from Westchester, the principal at Westchester East, experienced in his personal life with the drug overdose of his son, and coming in and giving a very candid, very heartfelt presentation to all of our students and also to us parents that showed up to see him speak, which is, I would like to thank Westchester for being here this evening, because they really have helped us with some of our initiatives as well. And Mark has in line, we're just waiting for confirmation on 2 speakers to come in for the pre-prom season to really talk about drinking and drugs and alcohol and the effects of that, not only on your body, but the effects that will have on you long term if something does happen or a bad decision is made. And what we've done with Drug and Alcohol Task Force is really open some of the students up to have open conversations, to be able to say, I need help. After Rick Dunlap's presentation, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we had 5 students and 5 families reach out to say, you know what, we're here. We recognize that there's some drug use in the house. We recognize that there's some out-of-control behaviors. What can you do to help us? And it's not just a school issue, which is why we're here tonight. It's about being raised by a village. I had the pleasure of where I grew up was very small, and I was raised very much by a village. And it's absolutely thrilling to see the Radnor community start to pull together to put supports around students outside of just the middle school or the high school or the elementary schools, but to really pull together as a community and let other people know we care about you. I might not know you, but I care about you. I care about what's going to happen to you. And that's really what this is all about and where the high school is headed with the Drug and Alcohol Task Force. So from part of doing the in-house survey, Lynn Blair, and I wish she was here because she's really done a spectacular job, came to me in the beginning and said, I have an idea, which I've learned is dangerous, and said, sure, let's listen to your idea. And she said, I would love to bring a program in that would really help support a positive school culture, that would open the doors to promote kindness, to promote acceptance, and to really bridge some of those gaps that we have between the social culture and some of our racial and ethical and ethnic cultures, and bring the kids together as a community. We are getting there, but of course there's always going to be some differences that need to be explored. So after a lot of research and her dragging me to an outside school district to see Rachel's Challenge, which is an organization to be presented, we've decided to bring them in December. Rachel's Challenge is basically run by Daryl Scott. Rachel Scott was the first person killed in the Columbine High School massacre. Her family put together a character education program that has now become a national organization. We had the opportunity of going and seeing this presentation, and what we found most impressive is it's a sustainable program. It's not a one and done, I'm going to come talk to you and then it ends. What Rachel's Challenge does is it allows us to create what's called the Friends of Rachel Club. And what we're doing currently is the student body, private donations from the community, have allowed us to raise enough money to bring the program in December, but has also given us funds to start the Rachel's Challenge Club in the fall. And what that looks like is we've reached out to the faculty and the community and the student body to say, we're looking for students who are silent leaders, who may not be your top athletes and who aren't always the kids in the top 10% of the class, but who are those students that are silently making a difference, that have the potential to really rise to leadership and make good choices. And we're also looking for some of the kids that walk on the edge, that they teeter a little bit, but they have that light where you know if you could just reach them in a different way and bring them together and pull them into the school community, you could really make a positive leader and a positive impact in the student body. We're starting with an average of 35 to 40 students. Lynn, unfortunately, will be out for most of this process, so I'll be running it with the help of, Mark doesn't know this yet, him. And we're going to be running some interviews of students who have been nominated by the faculty and have been nominated by their peers. Because what we did is we asked the student body, they each donated, so the students are already have ownership of this program. They voted, they donated money to bring it in, so there's an ownership of the student body to bring this club in. And we're going to be interviewing the students and moving forward then to bring in a program in the fall. The purpose of the program is to educate students on things such as responsibility, leadership, acts of kindness, and we'll be working together to really build a cohesive educational character education program through Rachel's Challenge. With that said, we'll be doing some activities in the fall, and we're going to try to create a leadership training program. So every year the club becomes a little bit bigger, and every year we can bring in more kids, so eventually it will reach out beyond the high school. Our goal is to train high schoolers to go to the middle and the elementary levels to do character education and to train peer-to-peer. So they don't hear it from us anymore. They hear it from the students that they look up to. They hear it from the students that they see, especially at the elementary and the middle school level, because we know that those high school students are the ones that your students are trying to look at or to emulate or they see all the time. Even if they're not the top athletes, they're the ones, or they're not the top musicians, they're the ones that are out there that are making an impact. So we're trying to broaden the leadership that we have at the high school and really make it a far wider reaching community. How the program works is Daryl Scott, Rachel's father, is the speaker that we have coming in December. He does a student presentation in the morning, and he'll talk to 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th graders. He stays for the remainder of the day and runs a training program on leadership and kindness and character education, and he'll train 35 to 45 students that we have chosen, and then by December we'll have a couple more that may show some interest for us. And then there'll be a parent program in the evening. He does not like to do the parent program the night before, because we did ask that question. He really wants it to be student driven, and the students to go home and say, you need to come, you need to see this, we need to have you there. And that is occurring in December. So before that, what Mark and I have been blessed with is that we're given the opportunity to go to the Character Counts education training in the summer, in August. It's a 3-day training in Philadelphia. So it'll be Mr. Skellinger, myself, and hopefully Lynn will be joining us, and we're going to bring aspects of that program as well back into the high school. So we're really looking at developing a character education program through the Drug and Alcohol Task Force to create a wide ranging of community while focusing on the needs of our students when it comes to at-risk behaviors. Lynn and I did apply for a grant, which we haven't heard about yet, and we're hoping that that grant will help us fund a nationally normed survey, and we've been looking at several of them to really get a feel for where the high school is at this time. There are some out there that other schools have used. We're just trying to find one that's really going to fit Radnor and Radnor's needs. So currently at this time, that's really where we stand as far as where the Drug and Alcohol Task Force has been and where we're heading at the high school level. Okay? So thank you.
It's obvious what Mrs. Butler's brought to the high school. You can see the passion, but really the one piece I want everyone to leave with is the high school is not a gotcha place, it's a help you place. And it's very important because I think very often people are afraid to come forward because I'm going to get in trouble. And I hope that, and I'm saying that publicly for those that don't believe that, but I think the kids in the school hopefully do see that because it's true. That's what we're about. We want to help people through a difficult time. When someone's on the edge of the cliff, you can push them or pull them. We want to pull them. So thanks.
Thank you for adding that, and thank you, Haley, for that great presentation. So now we've heard a little bit about what's going on in our schools. We're going to move on to hear from first Arch and TA, which they're kind of the granddaddy of these community coalitions because they've been around the longest. And we're going to hear from Jean Braun and Ellen Muller. They're just going to give us a little synopsis of their approach, and you can hear them out and see if you think anything sounds good for us.
I'm Ellen Moeller, and this is Jeannie Braun, and we are both members of Arch. I thought what we would do is I'll tell a little bit about the history of Arch, and then Jeannie can kind of bring you up to date on what's happening now. Does that sound okay? All right. Arch stands for Area Residents Caring and Helping. And it's a coalition that was created in Tredyffrin and Easttown in 1981. This was in response to the growing number of teen parties that were involving alcohol and other drugs. A core group of parents working with local police and the school district raised enough money to sponsor a nationally recognized speaker at the time, his name David Toma. They brought him to the community, and he spoke to, we weren't there, but the records say he spoke to 3,000 students, or rather adults, parents, at the Valley Forge Music Fair, and then also spent 2 days in the schools speaking to all the students in grades 6 through 12. And his message basically was to the community that even in an affluent suburb like Tredyffrin and Easttown, that the problem of alcohol and other drug abuse among young people was present and growing. So that became the catalyst for forming Arch, which continues to be a volunteer grassroots organization. It was incorporated as a not-for-profit in 1982. The goals that were developed at the very beginning are very much in line with what our goals are today. Basically to provide a better quality of individual and community life by working toward eliminating alcohol and other drug use by minors, fostering improved relationships between parents and youth, and furthering cooperation between schools and the community. One of the first projects that was undertaken then by Arch was the development of a network of caring parents by signing a set of teen party guidelines. The parents affirmed Arch's goals and affirmed to one another, pledging that they would not serve alcohol at parties in their homes and that they would network with other parents in planning parties. Over the years, Arch apparently circulated a newsletter. I've got lots of copies of them in my notebooks, although that hasn't been in recent years. We have definitely developed relationships with community stakeholders over time. Certainly have relationships with both of the police departments in our community, Tredyffrin and Easttown. We have a very good, strong working relationship with the TE school district. One of the things that the early Arch group also did was establish a group that is still in existence today, a high school group in the high school that is called REACH, which stands for Responsible Educated Adolescents Can Help. This high school group plans programs and skits, which then they in turn take to the elementary school kids and the middle school kids and give, a drug-free message. Let's see. Over years, we don't exactly know how this went, but over years, I think involvement and Arch's activities kind of rose and fell. And I think there was kind of a period of time when, although it was still in existence, there wasn't a lot going on. And around 2002, which is about the time that I got involved with Arch, we made a concerted effort to kind of grow it up again. And we were asked by the school district, actually, if we would help to put on a community forum as a way to present the youth survey results. And much as what we've already heard here this evening, the feeling was that the problems of our kids using drugs and alcohol is not a school problem. It's a community problem. It's a problem in our families. And by having a community group present the information to the community, we just felt that was a better way to do things. So that's what happened starting in 2002, and then every other year, our community gives the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, and that's given every 2 years. So then following getting the results of that information, we've always, in conjunction with the TE School District, then given a forum to present that information. That's, I think, pretty much it that I was going to say. Jeannie can bring you up to date.
Thanks. First of all, I want to just congratulate everybody. This room is full, and for a first meeting, I think it's really a great turnout, just based on what I've seen, for us. I'm going to read Arch's our current mission statement. We are a coalition of parents, educators, and community members committed to promoting the well-being of youth in Tredyffrin and Easttown townships. We will work as a resource to families as they help their children form a positive self-image, make healthy choices, and reduce the use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. We've sort of had this transition in Arch, and that is our focus will always be drug and alcohol use and trying to keep our kids alcohol and drug free. What we have found as a community group, and especially when we're trying to attract parents to fill rooms like this, is there are so many issues related to drug and alcohol use. So, I remember the first time we got a great speaker, and in addition to the drug and alcohol topic, we added stress and at-risk sexual behavior, and there was a standing room only. I mean, people, parents tend to come out for issues related to drug and alcohol use more than if you'd say we're going to talk about drugs and alcohol in our kids. I mean, that's sort of what we've learned. So it may not be true here, but that's, we make an effort at having book discussions, community forums, We offer a free webinar to the TE parents on topics, eating disorders, self-image, depression and mental health, at-risk sexual behavior, addiction. So it's sort of an umbrella of wellness, and certainly drug and alcohol use is a key part of that for us. And also, I just wanted to say, I will leave with you, and maybe we already did this, but anything we have is not proprietary. I mean, anything we've developed, we've done suggested reading lists for parents. We've done things called, try to get middle school parents in the fold, a cell phone contract. So, the first time you buy your oldest kid a cell phone, it's like a new territory. Anytime a parent is in transition, we have our best parent meetings. The fourth grade parents, before those kids go to middle school, boy, those parents are like all ears, eyes open, what can you tell me? And then also for eighth grade parents going into high school. So, and it's sort of like we're not taking advantage of that, but anytime there are parents in transition, their oldest kid is getting a license, so, oh my gosh, any resource we can be, any help we can be, even just talking to other parents. And that's the other point I wanted to make. That we've learned really succinctly, that is, parenting is a very personal thing. And as you're establishing this coalition, I believe, not to be preachy, you have to be very careful not to come off as telling people how to parent. Because, not that you want to think about your image, but you want to think about your image because, because people will sort of dismiss you if you're not behaving like a resource. If you're behaving like I'm going to tell you what you should do with your kid, I got to tell you that's a problem. So like when I hear the high school folks talk about the openness and the how can we help, and that is exactly the tone as an organization that seems to be working for us in the past couple years. Every family is different. Every child in every family is different, as many of you know. So that's sort of that's really helped us as we evolve in getting parents out to our events. And one thing I thought of, is it Haley? While Haley was speaking, that whole program at the high school, that's social norming. I mean, that's kids saying everyone's not doing it. We have a similar program at Conestoga. It's more about stress relief, how much the kids are stressing out. But we're in our second year of a social norming program at the high school. But from a parent's perspective, there's social norming. So what we're trying to get is our parents to say, everyone's certainly not serving alcohol at their homes, but it's okay to call another parent and ask that question. So if over here you have parents who are doing it completely wrong, and that's them, and parents over here who are, by the book, very, everyone's in the middle wondering, oh, what's everyone else doing, and how would my peer, right, just like adolescents, how would my friend handle this situation? So that really helps for parents to get together and to talk and to learn, and with each child, figure out what's the best course of action. So those are the kind of things we promote in all of our literature and all of our speakers and all of those things. I think that was all. Let me just make sure. Yeah, that's really. I had a sort of a recap of the kind of programs we do, but I'll leave those with you as you're establishing, this coalition. But it's really encouraging to see this many parents turn out for a initial meeting. That's great. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, how many hands for having these two come and run our coalition? So next we're going to hear from Westchester area Communities That Care, Christina Valaki, who is right here. Thank you.
Congratulations. This is very exciting. Thank you so much for letting me come and share with you. I spent a lot of time sharing about the Communities That Care Coalition concept. And in the state of Pennsylvania, about 15 years ago, the powers to be brought in the Communities That Care model. And I actually brought the sheets with, and I've got copies, so I'll leave them if you're interested. And Communities That Care is about a 40-year-old model for community coalitions. And Chester County got right on that bandwagon about 12 years ago. And in our county, we have now 7 CTCs. So we had 6 active CTCs for about 10 years, and then just this past year, one more community received a CTC grant through the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. The concept of CTC, Communities That Care, is based on a bunch of research on risk and protective factors. So what we do is we look at the risks in the community and we fill them with protections to take care of those risks. So tied into that, as Ellen mentioned, we use the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. I actually brought copies of that and I walked away with it. So that, I'm sure that's one of the surveys that you're looking at. The state of Pennsylvania actually uses 2 pretty much, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. We won't even talk about what they're doing at the state level with that. So, but we, in Chester County, we are blessed to have monies come from the Chester County Department of Drug and Alcohol Services, and they actually fund our surveys. So just move right over to Chester County, and you've got the commission behind you. So every 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grader in our county takes that survey. So it's a self-report, and we do that every 2 years, as Ellen mentioned. So when I got involved, I'm a data geek, so my background is accounting. So I came in, how exactly I got into working with youth and risk behaviors, but when I got to the numbers, that spoke to me. So as we looked at the numbers, we realized, as you said, the parents need to talk about this, the parents need to see this data, and we were doing this work and didn't have youth involved. So we in Westchester CTC realized that the youth needed to be taking this over. So in conjunction with the United Way of Chester County, we partnered and brought in a youth group. The youth created their logo, they created their own group, and named themselves the Youth Leadership Council. And what they now do is they take that survey and they present it in the community. It's pretty powerful to hear those kids stand up there and actually talk about what's happening. The first time they did it, remember that? That was at QVC. That was our first key leaders meeting. And those kids stood up there and actually talked about that data. That was pretty powerful. You should see them now because they've grown up. So the first kid from that meeting is going to graduate from high school this year. So that's very powerful. So that's one of the things that that our youth do. So I'm going to tell you also a few other things that our youth leaders do. They've gotten into this leadership training. So there's a National Coalition of Coalitions, CADCA, the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. They do a lot of training for youth. They've got a National Youth Leadership Initiative. So we're very excited that one of our kids was just selected to be a national trainer. So next week she goes down to get training to become a national trainer. I didn't get accepted. She did. So she's getting paid on top of that. So once she's done, then she'll be able to actually do some of that national training. So that's pretty exciting. You talked about the peer-to-peer, the youth. That's really important for those kids, especially the high school kids. It's kind of funny because last week, the high school kids, months back, it never works. God bless you for being involved in high school. But, you know, they said, oh, let's go in and talk to the middle school kids. Okay, great. You got to create your talk. So 6 months later, they go into the middle school, and it was funny because we've got middle school kids in our youth council, and the middle school kid wanted to teach the middle school kids. Like, yeah, that didn't work. We didn't do that. So that was very cool. And then we also have an after-school program for middle school youth, and our high school kids come out into that, and they teach a character education program called Lion's Quest. So they teach that to the middle school kids. That's pretty exciting. That's the Youth Leadership Council. And then a couple other things that we do tied into actually our coalition is we do a lot of parenting. The struggle we have in the parenting program world is there's not a lot of evidence-based parenting programs out there. So a program that we use is called Parenting Wisely. It's actually only research-based, and we take that data to elementary parents. very interesting. We're actually in the middle of our spring session, so we have about 35 parents being trained in this Parenting Wisely program. Now, you guys were talking about environmental strategies. You're talking about social norming, talking about your pledge, and some of our communities on that pledge side have picked a program called Parents Who Host Lose the Most, and that's an environmental strategy. The idea is, let's see if we can change the environment. Parents are hosting. No, not every parent is hosting. So if we can talk about what the laws are around that. So there's a number of other coalitions in the state doing that. Has anybody ever seen one of those signs when you're driving down the turnpike? The big red with the gavel? No, nobody has? Actually, I was driving down Route 30 the other day, and there was one there. Exactly how it got there, I have no idea. But it was pretty cool. And then the other piece of environmental strategies that we do is the Safe Homes campaign. And Liz, was it just Liz that came out with Dr. Dunlap and talked about safe homes? So the Safe Homes campaign was adopted through our PTOC, our Parent Teacher Organization Council. So all 16 of our schools make up this parent council, and that group actually adopted the Safe Homes campaign. And that campaign is basically a pledge, much like you talked about, that parents sign, and then they talk to their students about it. So as Arch said, nothing is proprietary. So I brought some information I brought CTC, I brought our survey information that actually have county, and I think I have one copy of Westchester that you're welcome to keep. And then I brought some information specifically about Westchester. I didn't mention our mission is to reduce substance abuse among youth, promote positive choices, and strengthen families through our Drug-Free Communities Coalition. Did I miss anything? I want to mention just a couple things. The survey that you guys were just looking at for the middle school, you had sexual questions in there. The Pennsylvania Youth Survey that we do has no sexual behavior questions in there. So that's one of the things that we call a negative. It's a bit of a conservative survey. So we also get a lot of other data. Like I said, I have those here, though, that you're welcome to take a look at. And there was one other thing I was going to say about. And then we're talking about social norming. There's a couple things that are happening in the state. You see the conference? It's being funded by one of the state agencies. So it's a social norming conference. It's a 3-day conference. So I'll share that information with you guys as well. What's really important, and that's what's really exciting about Chester County, is we're working together. So you're not in this alone. You've got communities around you that have coalitions that are existing, and people are always willing to share their information. There's a lot of good data out there, a lot of good support out there. Okay? Thanks.
Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little and have a discussion. And it's a little awkward to do a discussion when you're having a public meeting that's televised because you, wait, bring up one more chair, I miscounted. Because you have to come to the mic. And I'm going to be standing back there with another mic. If you don't want to talk into the mic, you can just ask any of us or make your comment and we'll repeat it for you if you don't want to be on TV or whatnot. But these 6 people behind me are people who have been involved in this, and I'm just going to quickly introduce them so that you can get an idea of some of the people who have been working on this for a while. And then Christy Shug is going to kind of give you a brief kind of where we are right now and how we got to this room. To my far left, I have Alex Hill. Now, Alex was the head of Radnor Educational Foundation. His kids are all done out of college. None of them went to juvie. He's all good, and he has been a part of this, working with DATF for a really long time, many, many years, getting this moving forward. Sarah Loker has been involved with the DATF at the middle school and I think the high school level. She's also with REF. Ellen Lair has also been working with the middle school level DATF for several years. This is Christy Shug and Jennifer Superduk. Christy and Jennifer are really kind of responsible for getting the energy boost to get this moving at this point in history and getting us moving forward towards this community coalition. They're both involved pretty much at the high school level and have really been just a great positive force getting this moving forward. And then finally we have Sergeant Andy Block, who lives this every day and has for many, many years. So he has a lot of wisdom to share with us. So Christy's going to get up and just get us started, kickstart us, and I'm going to be standing back there, so you can come up either place if you want to comment, or just wave over and we can repeat your comments.
Thank you. First, I want to start again by thanking everybody for being here. This is wonderful to have this many faces here. Before we get started, let me just say that the surveys that you hopefully picked up at the front desk are really, really important. If you could just take a minute to fill those out, if you have to scoot out before maybe you get a chance to speak or make a comment, those will be very valuable as we move forward, try to see what direction we want to take with this. So please take the time to do that. I don't know, we're here because we're concerned parents, and I think this tried to get legs before. Hopefully this will be the time. Hopefully this will be the time that we feel the energy, we feel the need. We've been through a lot the last year in this community, so I think there's no question we have a need. There's no question our kids are facing a lot of stress every day, and even if you are blessed enough to have a child that you feel like is not participating in this risky behavior, I can promise you they're faced with it every day. They have friends that are participating, they have people they're concerned with, they're forced to make a choice constantly. And that's very stressful, and that's hard for a child every day. So, as we would get together for various things, it happens at ball fields, it happens when you're meeting for other things, conversation constantly comes back to, oh my gosh, did you hear what happened this weekend? Did you hear about this party? Did you know what happened at the day? Do you hear? And instead of it constantly feeling like it was a gossipy thing, we thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to talk about this, to address this, to communicate these issues, because there are parents that really aren't aware. If you're not in the high school scene yet, if you haven't been faced with it, you're really not aware of what's going on. But it's important for you to know, because your child probably is. And so what we're hoping for with our name, REACH, is to really have that education and that communication and the awareness for all the parents to just know what's going on out there and be willing to talk about it with one another, to not have the stigma that if I talk about that, are they going to think I'm judging them? Are they going to think I'm opinionated? Are they going to, we just need to be open with one another. And like Jeannie said, there's so many ways to parent. I don't think that anybody ultimately is looking to judge one another on how you do it. We just want to keep our kids safe. We want to all have as much information as we can to make the best choices we can for our kids. And one thing that seems to stand out, at least to me, and I'll speak for myself, is the feeling that we're trapped as parents about not being able to speak out. Either we want to protect our child from having the parent that rats out. We want to not feel like we're poking our nose into someone's business. You're afraid we're going to be judged if we make the call and say, hey, you might want this information. I'm not judging you. I'm not telling you what to do with it. But if you didn't have it, or if you did have it, you might make a different decision. And wouldn't we all like to have that? We can't be with our kids every moment. And it's nice to know that they're surrounded by other people that care about them, by a community that cares about them, and isn't looking to get them in trouble, like Dr. Skellinger said, but that it's looking to help. And so that's what we're hoping that this can start for us, is that openness as a community to say, hey, I care about more than just my kid. When I tuck them in at night, am I sleeping okay? That I cared about more than that just today. And we're hoping that, and I'm really betting that all of you do, and that we all do. And I think our kids need us to do that for them too. They need that extra support from us to say, it's great that you're sharing this information with me. It's great that you're talking about it. It's great that you have friends you care about and you want to share. There's got to be a better way that we can get that information out there for parents to protect their kids without sacrificing our child's reputation or they're talking to us, they're communicating with us. So that's what we're hoping for. We need your suggestions, we need your ideas, we need your energy, we need your enthusiasm. Whatever you think we need, you need as support, what would be a great benefit for you? That's what we want to hear. This is not set in stone by any stretch. We're here to pull everybody together and say, hey, how does this need to look in Radnor? How is this going to best serve us? So, as Elaine said, this mic or that mic, because you need to be heard. And if you don't, just if you have a question or a comment, let us know. That'd be great. That'd be great, Herb. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Herb Hazen, and I'm currently chair of the Radnor Township Board of Health, and I'm very happy to be here. And we'll be working very closely with this group as a board and myself as an individual. I'm intrigued by the notion of these surveys, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and the negatives or weakness that underlies the Pennsylvania survey, because it isn't quite as comprehensive as it should be. And that's one reason why Pennsylvania does not, the innate conservatism is one reason why Pennsylvania does not participate in a national survey, which is done by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention every 2 years. The Philadelphia School District used to participate in that survey, and it provides very useful data. The survey is itself online, as well as the most recent results, so you can see the results of the national survey and what questions are particularly asked. And why this is very important is surveys not only give you a snapshot for that particular survey year, but they can and should serve as a guide for decision makers with regard to programs. For example, if you initiate programs to address teen pregnancy and you know where you are when you started that program, and if 2 years later you're still in that same place, then whatever programs you've initiated may have to be looked at in terms of continuation or amendment or just abandoning and going on to something else. And that goes across the line. So I would urge that we look at the CDC, because they've been doing it for a very long time, and it's a very valuable survey. I just have a quick question, Elaine, with regard to this survey, the Radnor Reach Survey. Is that meant to be anonymous? There is no line on it for a name.
That question is for Christy and Jennifer. Do you know?
I think if you want to put your name on it, that's just great. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, we certainly wanted people to have the option and not feel like they had to. Okay.
I'm Alex Hill, and yes, our 3 daughters did graduate from Radnor. The youngest graduated in 2004, although I'm not as old as Elaine would have you believe. I've stayed active in the last 6 years because I believe so totally in this program, and I believe that it has to be a program. Haley mentioned that it couldn't be a series of events, and for years in Radnor, that's what we've had. We've had an event followed by no follow-up, and then another event followed by no follow-up. When I looked at Esther's survey tonight, what struck me what's happening in the 8, 9, and 10-year-old category. I looked at the high school and I looked at the middle school, and I saw the figures. To me, they seem light. I really feel it's stronger than that as far as the abuse is concerned. But I've been advocating for years a bottom to top or a top to bottom program that builds like a pyramid, so that we're making sure that the programs at the elementary school level are in tune with one another. They complement one another. The names are similar, and as those children move into the middle school, it's consistent message. When they move up to the high school, it's a consistent message. I don't think we have that today. I think we need it. I'm a little concerned that we didn't have speakers from the elementary schools, and there may be a good reason for that, but we need to include all of the stakeholders. This does need to be a community effort, and the community effort goes beyond our school district. It touches the community, it touches the private schools, it touches the county. And I think that we need to be assured, and I think that we need to use our voices to make sure that the county and the Radnor Township fully supports this program so that we can be successful this time around.
Hi. I have a couple of comments and a question. First, I was going to ask the question about this safe house thing. It's a great concept for people to know that there's other parents out there that obviously feel the same way that they do. Now, is this something that it would be like a directory, so that if my kid wanted to go out, I could look into this directory and say, oh, Dr. and Mrs. Supurdock are on the safe house list. You're okay to go there. I mean, is that the idea behind it? It is. Okay. A comment I thought, well, just to elaborate on not having, series of events, maybe the program could take a direction where it would be like a mandatory kind of meeting that begins in the open houses in elementary school, educate the parents early on, and have, obviously have it be some kind of ongoing, but I think it'd be something you'd want to introduce, not just introduce it once, but, every open house has like a sign-up sheet like the PTO, like this, needs to be equally as important as the PTO. The other thing I think is great, and I think it would be a great way to market it, sorry, I can't help myself, I think this is a good way for parents to feel like they have a little more control. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been talking to my kids about, drugs, alcohol abuse, and all the bad things that can potentially happen to them since they were like 3 years old. And they do look at me sometimes like I'm nuts, but I'm really not nuts. This stuff does happen. And I think having the opportunity to educate them, I think it's great doing it by their peers. I think it's more effective because obviously all adults in their lives are going to, don't do this, don't do that, no. But I think hearing it from their peers should be really effective. But anyway, so that's my comment. So, and obviously anything I can do to help, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Welcome. Well, I'm just wondering, the safe homes seems to be, or the party guidelines is another, the TE aspect of that. If we could hear from you, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about either one, maybe a minute or two, because those are kind of nuts and bolts of what this might, one of the first things that we may be able to get off the ground. And I love the idea of it beginning with our youngest, because it's a little shocking to start that in the high school.
Thank you. How many of you saw Liz Ruff speak about safe homes? I got to see who my competition is. Okay, well, I'm no Liz Ruff, so let's just say that now, because Liz and Lisa wasn't here that night, right? Okay, Liz and her counterpart, Lisa, created this concept from a national campaign called Safe Homes. So the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board actually supports this campaign. I don't think they actually call it a program. They call it a campaign. They actually have been funding it as well. So that RFP will come back up next February. So I would definitely look for that. This year it's 15,000. Last year it was 11. So the idea and this national concept says that what you do is you create a pledge that parents sign. So it came into Westchester because somebody moved from Texas. They brought this high school pledge. So then the high school parents created this pledge, they signed it, and then in their directory they had an asterisk next to it. So what I heard, and it had been happening for 10 or 12 years, I heard then they started not really being serious about it. So that's when the parents pulled back together and said, okay, let's regroup here. They then went to the elementary pledge. And I think I brought a decent amount of these, so I'll leave these out. The elementary pledge is, in my mind, fairly basic, but what it did was it created a lot of talk. And this first year of elementary, most of them were not willing to do the asterisks. So that was really interesting. And again, remember, I'm the accountant, and Liz is our designer. And these guys have been raising kids. I think between them they've got 7 boys. So they've been raising kids for a lot of years. But what it did is it created conversation. So we're 2 years into it, and the idea here is it was owned by parents. So that says Westchester Area School District. The new one will say PTOC. So it's owned by you guys. So it's a perfect place to start because it's a parent thing. Again, it's going to bring up conversation and it's going to bring up arguments. Someone looked at the elementary one. I know I'm past 2 minutes. They looked at the elementary one and they said, I think it says something about guns, firearms, something. Here it is. I will keep firearms, tobacco, alcohol, and prescription drugs out of reach when children were visiting my home. So a parent called Lisa and said, well, I don't understand why you'd have this. Nobody has guns. Who's the one that said they're in Chester County? We were laughing about that, right? But they were serious about it. And I was in an elementary back to school night with the Safe Homes concept. And remember, this look is yours. You can have it. So that's the cool part about it. You have to obviously create the wording inside. So I'm standing in elementary. I've got the little poster they created and the brochures. And the parent says, elementary. How many are you elementary? Okay, wow. Okay, cool. The parent says, I don't know. Don't you think that we should teach our high school kids how to drink so that when they get to college, they know what to do? Yeah, no. Like, no. I don't do well in those situations because I was like, no. So the conversation, sorry, I judged. Yeah, so don't send me out with parents too often. I know. The very, very first time I did this work, again, I'm an accountant, okay? A parent comes up, brochures, and it was middle school smoking brochure. There was plenty of other ones, so she took a few, and I said, oh, take this smoking one. It's cool. It tells you how to talk to your kids. It's got bullet points on it. Good brochure. Oh, no, I don't need that. Why not? My kids will never smoke. I laughed out loud. I was like, you're kidding, right? Like, seriously, I thought she was kidding. My boss was like, right there. He's like, well, so anyway, so that's the concept, the talk.
We were presented the Safe Homes concept, and we had the party guidelines thing in place. And the party guidelines is just a high school document because it's about throwing parties. And, you know, if I'm not home and you sign it and it says, well, we will not serve alcohol if we're away, we're going to notify people that we're away. I have to tell you, honestly, not a big response. People are really reluctant to sign it. We've had people like donate money, but don't print my name. So that's discouraging. I mean, and anytime we've talked about an asterisk in the directory, it dies. It dies, and that's so disappointing. But that's been our reality. So people want to not be on record as in our experience. as you know, abiding by these guidelines. So then what we do is we sort of morph it, and we do the party guidelines as our ad, you know, in the high school directory, and we give them out, and you know, just keep it out there. But we just, I don't know what the peak signature number was, but it not enough to you know, to make it look like a majority. So, and then to the point about bringing up the younger kids and parents, our challenge is, because when we go to elementary parents, they're thinking about you know, Girl Scouts and bake sales, and it's just so hard to get them to see that in 2 short years, you know, you could be on that you know, on that survey for a 10-year-old, you know. So that's just a constant effort to try to bring, obviously, doing something with the children, programs in the school for the children, you know, I'm sure you're doing, and that's important. But getting those elementary parents is a real challenge. And sometimes, somewhere around 6th to 7th grade, boy, they wake up because they're all of a sudden like, oh my God, I don't know any of their kids' friends, and I don't know the parents. So just trying to lay that groundwork when their kids are younger. I have college, high school, middle school, and elementary school. And I always say, before I'm done, I know one of them will be in the Suburban, you know, like, so, right, you know which one, Margaret. But but anyway, you know, it's really important to get that message out to the parents of younger children. So I applaud you for making that an effort. That's all.
I just wanted to add 2 more things that had come to my mind, which had sparked an idea about the conversations that take place, and it was a mention about our elementary schools. Part of the conversations that have been created, which is creating that connection for us from the elementary school, is the implementation of the bullying surveys that is happening in our elementary schools, which helps us to build upon some of those conversations that need to happen. And then one thing that I neglected to mention for the middle school is that we do have which was our goal for the second year after the surveys, was to create a student group, which is called It's a Matter of Choice. And that's run by one of our teachers, our 8th grade teacher, science teacher, Miss Lauren Rains. So they meet twice a month, 3 to 4. It's considered one of our intramural programs. So we are trying to create that connection and that continuity from the 3 elementary schools. And then our 8th graders going into the 9th grade, when they get over to the high school with Ms. Butler and Mr. Skellinger and other administration and counselors. Hopefully those students, we have about 25 or 30 students that do participate. It also depends on what's happening with the sports and things. So there have been times that we try to pull them during the lunches, and sometimes there are more students than which we have room for. So that's our student group, which was our main focus, so that when they get to the high school, that group may be also a core group that you may look for that can be a part of those leaders that you're looking for in the high school. So I wanted to mention those 2 things. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be asked to come and speak this evening on a very important topic that faces every one of us on a daily basis here. My name's Andy Block. I've been a police officer in this township for the last 20 years. So I've seen a lot over those 20 years, and I want to just enlighten everybody over the next few minutes on what you may be experiencing now or in the future, depending on the age of your children. First and foremost, as we see through all our investigations when we have these types of incidents, is that a lot of times there's a lacking of communication within the family unit. And what people tend to say, well, it's not my problem, or it's the police department's problem, or it's the school district's problem. Maybe it's not. It's all our problem. All right? We all have an investment here, and it's an investment in our community, and our children are the future of our community, and we want to raise them in the most prolific way, if you will, as far as safety and opportunities for them in this day and age. So the communication starts at home. It's the foundation, as we spoke about with the elementary children. And I'll take you back some 27, 28 years ago when MAD started. All right, it was a very similar coalition that started out basically to get the drunk driver off the roadway and to promote the awareness about the underage drinking. And that has worked over the years because the group has stayed with it. There's been an ongoing commitment. And the same thing can happen here if everybody's willing to put that foot forward and look at things realistically. And that comes back to the survey. And I think your survey is very good, but I don't think it's detailed enough. I think you need to know exactly what the children are doing. As we speak about communication, you want to have communication within the house and within the school district and within the township. But I guarantee you, your children, with the advent and the use of the internet, know more than you do right now about these topics. I know it for a fact because we see it on a daily basis. Regional trends in this area, in the 5-county region, with respect to the drug activity. And we used to talk about, you know, your basic alcohol, your beer, or your marijuana as the gateway drugs. We're not looking at that or focusing on that anymore, unfortunately. And I'm sorry to report that out this evening, but we're looking more now towards the prescription medication. It's in epidemic proportions in this area on what an individual can get their hands on, whether it be a middle school student, a high school student, a college student, or an adult. And basically right now, the trend that we're seeing is there's been an extremely high amount of Percocet and Oxycontins that are on the market. And it's easy to get simply because of the prescriptions that are out there. All right, but what it leads to a problem because it becomes cost prohibitive in this day and age. What the market bears right now with the Oxycontins, it's 50 cents a milligram. The average tablet's 80 milligrams. So if you do the math, you're looking at $40 per tablet. Well, that's the gateway, ladies and gentlemen. That gets the person into this arena. And what happens is it becomes to the point where it's not affordable. So who in this room, we'll have some education, and I don't want to signal anybody out, but when they can no longer afford the prescription medications, what's the next substance they turn to? Who knows? It's heroin, absolutely. All right, that's a dirty word. You hear it's heroin. All right, that's what's out there. Unfortunately, Philadelphia is one of the hubs in the United States for heroin, and there's all different brands that are on the streets. And you can go to any street corner on any given day or evening and pick that up down there. And that's the real tragedy here, is that it starts out with a controlled substance such as your prescription medication, which is controlled. It's controlled by pharmaceuticals. And then when they can no longer get that or they can afford that, now they're moving on to the unknown with the purity levels and what they're mixed with. So again, it comes back to talking, all right, to your son and daughter on a daily basis, all right, and putting your arms around them. And that's what it is, protecting them, all right, but also educating them. So I'll open it up to the floor right now. I'm sure there's questions out there. All right, if you think it's not an appropriate question, I believe it would be for this forum. So I'm here, and I'm going to give you the honest answers and the honest truth. I don't want to sugarcoat anything because, as I stated earlier, it's about the communication and the investment we have in our community and our children. Yes. Well, there was a push on that. Unfortunately, what we're finding right now is that's going on.
Andy, can you repeat the question?
Sure,
so that
absolutely.
The people at home can.
Sure. The question was, and I'll paraphrase here, is the different forms of heroin that are out on the market right now are being disguised in forms of candy. There's somewhat of a truth to that, but it's not so much with the heroin. We're finding it's with the crystal meth, the methamphetamines now. They're making it in raspberry forms. So it's being introduced, obviously, to younger children. But getting back to the heroin situation, there's different brands out there, and they're marketed, believe it or not, in different manners throughout the city. And it's no different than going to the grocery store and looking for the different types of soup that may be on the counter. What's the soup that's best for you? They're doing this with what's called stamping or branding of it. So when somebody has a real popular brand out there, they're the ones that's receiving all the action. Where the sales may be brisk on that situation. So there hasn't been too much in the form of heroin, and unfortunately, the way it's packaged right now, it's in a $10 bag, and that bag is usually they use it once. It's a once a hit. So again, it's much cheaper, obviously, than what I spoke about, the Oxycontin and the Percocets. So it's much cheaper to go down, and unfortunately, where we're at, and in relation to where we are with the city of Philadelphia, you can be down and back, and we've experienced that within 15, 20 minutes. They're back out to one of the suburban communities. And it's not just here in Radnor, it's the 5-county region. Unfortunately, Chester, Delaware, and Bucks County border Philadelphia. But we've seen it, and we've actually had investigations where people are coming through this township. They get involved in situations they shouldn't, and they're coming from the upper counties of Pennsylvania to get to Philadelphia because of that hub situation. So again, it's communication. It's knowing where your children are at all times. You're not being a nag. You're being a concerned mother or father. You want to know where they're at and what they're doing and where they're going. Yes?
Are there certain areas in Radnor Township that are public areas where they're kind of known because of hanging out and doing drugs?
The question was, are there certain areas within Radnor Township that are known to be hangouts where there's possibility of drug activity? There's not any one particular area. We do when the weather's breaking now, you know, throughout the business district in Wayne, at the Wayne Corner, that's a very popular spot for younger adults, as well as the Bellevue Park and walk. So we have officers up there, all right, on every evening, all right, on a foot patrol, checking that area. And there is, from time to time, there is some marijuana use, and the police officers are there. They'll make the arrest and they'll bring the individuals in. And the first thing we do is we notify the parents, because it's about the prevention. I know the police department, sometimes we're looked at as the bad people, because we have to come and we have to make the phone call and it's an arrest, but it's not about that arrest. It's about getting the person to the right area where they need to be, so that they don't have this mistake again. And that's how we look at it. The first time it happens, it's a mistake. People make mistakes, and they shouldn't be penalized for it. There's codified laws that one must follow. However, there's also the rehabilitation part, you know, to make it right and give the person a second chance so they can be productive within our society as well. So there are, like I said, there are areas, and what we find in the Wayne area, it's not just Radnor residents. On several occasions, there have been parents from other townships that drop their children off, their sons and daughters, for an evening in Wayne. We found that, and sometimes that doesn't always mix. I see Dr. Robin, she's nodding and whatnot, but sometimes it's not always a great mixture up there. But we have officers up there every night, you know, on patrol and trying to keep their fingers on the pulse of that. Yes?
Can I ask you a question about some of these underage parties that we hear about, that parents either provide or allow certain alcohol there? And say you were to hear about a party and you were to show up, what are the consequences to either the parents or the children that are there, all being underage?
Sure. The question was, what are the consequences and the ramifications that if a parent sponsors a party where there's underage drinking that's going on, what happens to the parents as well as the children? If we're called to investigate those types of incidents, and unfortunately they do happen, I've seen several of them over my career here within the township, we will come in, we will conduct an investigation. There's certain things that the police department must do under the auspices of the law. And basically what will happen is the children that are there that are under the age of 21, they'll be cited if they've been consuming alcoholic beverages. Under the Crimes Code, they receive a citation, and then they'll be released to a responsible adult. So we'll get a hold of mom or dad. Somebody has to pick them up because they've been drinking. As far as the parents are concerned, obviously a criminal investigation is launched by the police department. We look at all aspects of it, and then most likely what will happen is they will face criminal charges where, as I just spoke about, the child or the person that's underage, they receive a ticket. It's a summary offense. The offense is summary simply because of they being under 21 years of age. They're not permitted by law to have alcoholic beverages. We get into criminal offenses for the people that host the parties, and they look at a slew of criminal charges that start from, depending on the age of the people at the party, for the corruption of the morals of minors, the furnishing the alcoholic beverages to the minors themselves, along with other violations of the Crimes Code, depending on what our investigation yields. So it's a very serious situation, and depending on what the hosts of the party do, it can affect their livelihood. So it's a situation where a foundation of one family can be rocked. And there are parents out there, unfortunately, I think that it's acceptable to do that. But when it's affecting other children, you know, it's not. And like I said, it goes on. And we see that not only on that level, but from time to time we'll see it at the college level, where they will have parties. And it's the same tolerance. It's a zero tolerance with that if we come in, that there's college students that are off campus hosting a party, the same investigation ensues, and it's the same ramifications as well. The one thing I will tell everybody that lives in Radnor Township, we have a vacant house watch, and some of you may be familiar with it, that when you're going away from time to time, you can call in that information, and the police officers that work that area will check your house while you're away. We've had parents actually call and say, I'm going away, however, my son or daughter is staying home. They're not to have anyone over, they're not allowed to have a party, and we want you to check that house. And it goes on our blotter. And unfortunately, from time to time, we will check the house, and we've actually encountered situations where there was a party going on where the son or daughter thought that mom and dad were only kidding about the police checking on the house. And lo and behold, we pull up and there's 15 or 20 people in there and they're drinking. So it does work, and I would encourage that, again, that if you're going away and you have a concern, you can call the police department, and we will put that on the watch, and we'll check on the house. And leave a good number where we can get a hold of you at. Yes, ma'am.
Is there currently any kind of cooperative education program between Radnor Police and Radnor High School? I'd love the high school age daughter to hear these stories.
Absolutely. We have an excellent working relationship with the school district and the high school as well. Anytime there's any type of situation, the school district's in contact with us. And again, it's more about the protection and the well-being of everybody in the township. So we do. We come in, the teachers know that we have different types of programs that we offer. I know the health classes in the high school, usually right around between the fall and the spring semester. We're in there for about a week where we go over the alcohol and drug awareness. I've been in some of the other classes in a very informal discussion where I come in and tell them, yes, I'm a police officer, but what we're going to talk about today stays in this room. And it's to open the lines of communication between the police and the students themselves. So, yes, we do it. We do it in the schools. And our officers are in the schools every day. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's part of the Safe Schools initiative that we adopted, unfortunately, right after Columbine. But we have officers walking in every school in this township on a daily basis, at least if not once, 2 or 3 times a day. And not just our public schools, but our parochial and private schools as well, because we're very rich in this area as far as our educational institutions are concerned. Yes, ma'am.
I have a high school son who speaks to his friends, and they all seem to think that there's a lot of marijuana usage in the bathrooms of the high school, and they put it on top of the stalls, and he wonders why there's not been a drug bust in the high schools. I just want to I just want to know whether that's a rumor or if it's true, or are there kids going into the school after they've been outside smoking pot? Because it seems to be, I don't know if anybody can agree with me that when you speak to a lot of these kids, they seem to think that there is a lot of marijuana usage outside the school when they go into the building.
The question is there marijuana usage inside the school buildings as opposed to the outside? If there are any situations like that, we're notified immediately by the school district, and we come over and we investigate that. And from time to time, that does happen. There are students that show up at school that have marijuana or different types of illicit drugs that they bring into school. And we're notified. We come over, and under the police department's policy as well as the district attorney's policy, they're brought here to the police station. Paperwork is completed. If they're under the age of 18, a juvenile petition is completed, and that is sent down to the juvenile court in media. And then there will be a hearing before a master. If they're over 18, then they're charged accordingly under the Crimes Code, because it's a criminal offense to possess any type of controlled substance, whether it be marijuana or an illicit drug. So, but again, we have a very, very open line of communication with the school. And the minute that we think there's a problem or we're hearing something, we're on the phone to the schools and the superintendent's office and vice versa. And I think that curtails a lot of what goes on. Some of the other township they're not as fortunate as what you have here in Radnor. Yes, ma'am.
Kids get the drugs. Where's the biggest source in your estimation?
Most of it, yeah.
Is it local? Another kid?
But the question is, where is most of the drugs coming in? It depends on the different types of drugs. The marijuana sometimes is locally picked up in other townships. So we liaison with the other police departments, but the majority of it's brought in from the city of Philadelphia, again, whether it be the marijuana, the heroin, or some of the prescription drugs.
So to a kid who then goes to a school or party and distributes it? Or
There's not, we don't,
nefarious people hanging out in school?
No, they're usually, when they're bringing it, it's for personal use only. It's not a situation, if there's a distribution syndicate going on, that doesn't stay quiet. We're made aware of that right away, and that's investigated. In addition to the police department, we work with the Attorney General's Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement, as well as the District Attorney's Office and their drug task force, so that's it.
Very often, it's not someone in a trench coat who looks the part, it's somebody you like. It's a friend of your son or daughters who you like and trust, and they're good kids making bad decisions.
And with that being said, when we conduct these investigations and we bring the parents in, and sometimes they emphatically deny that their son or daughter's involved in it, or they're shocked to find out about it, and that's where we're lacking that communication. You need to know what your son and daughter's doing, and if it's out there and you're listening, or you're listening to other people, you should have your fingers on the pulse.
Maybe this would be a good time for you to speak to what you would like to see from the Radnor community, from this coalition that.
What we would like to see as far as the police department is to work in harmony and conjunction with the school district and the community to try to alleviate a lot of these, but it's the openness, and through these surveys, like I said, the more detailed surveys is going to give you a better picture of what's going on. I think we have a very small snapshot right now, but you have to be willing to accept what these surveys are going to bring about, and you're going to have to willing to address what they're going to be at. And some of the results may be very shocking to you. And I heard it earlier when we started talking about the age that some of our school children are experimenting with sex. It's there, and like I said, this is all because of the internet. You need to be knowing what your son or daughter is doing with the internet. You know, what pages are they getting on? Where are they going on that? Because not only do you have the issues with, you know, what they're finding out, you know, with life in general, we have issues where we're dealing with sexual predators. They tell every parent, don't let them have a computer in their bedroom. Absolutely not, all right? Because basically that computer is letting them go anywhere in the world, and vice versa. So you got strangers coming into your house every day and every night. So it's again, a communication thing. Where are you going? What are you doing? But it's having the openness and the ability to confront what's going on and to discuss it with your son or daughter. The school district, again, I can't applaud them enough for what they do, because some people say, I'm not going to go to the police because this is a criminal matter. They could end up being arrested. But you have the school district there that's your social advocate for these types of situations. They're there to help. They have multiple programs that are available to them. But you've got to be willing to acknowledge there's a problem and bring it to the school's attention. You can bring it to the police department's attention. We're here because we have many avenues available to us as well with the social programs that are out there.
I'd like to, Andy and the police department, unfortunately, we have a good relationship. We have a lot of conversations that are off the record, if you will. I would call Andy, what do you think about this? What do we do here? And vice versa. It's a very good, open relationship, all for the benefit of the kids and to keep them safe and to keep them healthy. Again, not to get them in trouble. When someone sees the principal in a suit or the police officer in a uniform and in trouble. That's not it. And that's our biggest obstacle, is to getting them. I think we're making strides at the high school. I really do. That the kids now trust us and that we are there to help them, not to get them in trouble. And Andy's been very, very helpful with that as a whole.
Again, it comes back to what I started with this evening. It's a partnership. It's everybody's problem. We all have to work together on this collectively. Yes?
We were talking a short time ago about the house parties, and when you make a bust in a house and the kids getting arrested or being brought into the police department. Often when we see the police briefs in suburban after the fact, the parents' names are omitted. There's a street address possibly or a neighborhood mentioned, but the parents whose house it was, or who was hosting the party, they're not in there a lot.
The question was on the incidents that the police department investigates where there may be an underage party and the parents are present, that you don't always see that in the newspaper on the police blotter. To address that, if it's an ongoing criminal investigation, we have to hold that out until it's resolved one way or the other. So a lot of times that's why you may hear about it, that it happened Saturday night and you pick up the Suburban on Wednesday and it's not in there. It's simply because we're still investigating that aspect of it. And under the right to know, there's certain things that we put out there, but there's other things that we must hold back so it doesn't compromise the investigation itself. And then from time to time, where there's situations where somebody under 21 is cited, if they're under 18, their name cannot be released. All right, they're protected under the Juvenile Act. But if they're between 18 and 21, their names may appear in the paper as well.
I'm speaking specifically about the parents. I think that's a great preventative measure. If parents' names start getting in the paper.
For hosting it. And well, that's one of the things we go back to MAD. In those situations, when somebody's arrested for DUI, their biggest concern is not losing their driver's license. It's that their name's going to appear in the paper. We hear that more than about I'm going to lose my license. They can deal with that. They just don't want the name in the newspaper, and that's because they're known in their communities, and they're embarrassed at that point. And all right, they're embarrassed, but it's not the end of the world. We're here to help you. We're here to get you through this. You made a mistake. Obviously, the health, safety, and welfare of the community is our utmost concern and goal as the police department and part of this township, and that's what we're here for. And sometimes it's unpleasant on some of the things that we have to do and some of the duties that we carry out, but it's part of the mission and that goal that we have to stay focused on, because we work for you, essentially. I tell everybody that. If you take the commissioners out, you guys are our boss because you're paying our salaries. Thank you very much. And feel free to call. You can call and leave a message on my voicemail. If you have information, it can be left anonymously. We will look into that. Again, it's just trying to facilitate some of that communication. Absolutely, and I can tell you this now because Facebook are you aware that they just recently changed their privacy policy? Yes. All right, so there's really nothing open anymore. We were getting a fair amount of information through Facebook. We don't have that avenue available to us anymore. It was a tremendous aid for the police department when we were looking into that. So unfortunately, we can't get into it anymore because of the privacy. Sure. But that sometimes does help, and it's unfortunate to see that the people would go that far and put it out on on the internet on the behavior that they're exhibiting, because they're telling our younger children that that's okay, it's acceptable. If mom and dad are doing it, it's acceptable for us, and that's the environment that they're being reared in, and that's disappointing. Thank you very much.
I was just going to make a point to everything that Sergeant Black was saying. Do you find, like with your survey that you have there, do you find that this is something that's incredibly helpful? Something that if we had monthly meetings and the police officers could come in, fill us in on the latest, hey, this is where they're hanging out, this is what's going on. If you had parents just occasionally driving by the place where the drugs are being used or sold, after a while, that's going to stop. If you have enough people driving by, if as a community we say, look, this is a hot spot, what are we going to do about that? Do you find that maybe a forum like this, if we had a meeting where we could communicate with each other and talk about these, would that be something? Put it on your survey if you think that's a helpful idea. I mean, it seemed to be really popular tonight. So, and any other note, and these are kind of triggering. This is what this is about tonight, to kind of trigger things that, yeah, I think that would be helpful. And I think one other note to really think about is, as parents, that point that that line we have to walk between protecting our child at the expense of another one. And that's something that I know hits home with me when you find out that information through Facebook. My gosh, if you're not on Facebook, I'm not on Facebook, but I know my daughter's password. I can get on Facebook, and see what's going out there. You're equipped with so much information, but we feel so limited as to what we can do with it because our child will be ostracized at school. They won't be invited anywhere ever again. So, but if we all pulled together and said, you know what, this is the right thing. I have to make this call. I can't not make this call. I can't, is it worth sacrificing or, potentially sacrificing another child for the sake of mine's reputation? We shouldn't have to make that kind of choice. We should be looking out for our kids. That shouldn't have to be the choice we make. So what are some suggestions that we could do to make that easier for us and to make it easier for our kids? They shouldn't have that choice to have to make either. So.
Does anybody have any more parting thoughts before we go for the night? Margaret, come on up. Either one.
I just have one parting thought, and I have my youngest is a freshman in high school, and I commend you for all the work you're doing. But I would encourage anyone with middle school and younger to form a coalition in the middle school, because it has been my experience by freshman year, they have made the decision, whether they can articulate it or not, what they're willing to do to be accepted by their peers. And I really think, having had the pleasure of working with 4th and 5th graders the last couple of years in this township, that they're ready to hear what you don't think they're ready to hear. And that is the age that you have to reach, because they still see you as somebody that they want to make them, be proud of, and I think they're just more open. And I think from what I hear is happening in middle school and high school, if you don't reach them by 4th or 5th grade, it's going to be too late for a lot of them. Certainly not all of them, and it's worth everything we're doing in the high school. But I just really, really encourage everybody to push it down, because unfortunately everything around us in the media and in our communities is getting to our kids before we have the chance to.
One last thing before we go. I've been sitting next to Mark and listening and thinking, and I commend all of you for being here, and I do agree that our education needs to start earlier. I have young ones. I have one that'll be 6, and I have a 3-year-old. My 6-year-old probably knows as much about drug and alcohol as most of my high school students do. I talk about it constantly. Rick Dunlap is a neighbor of mine. When Timmy passed away from prescription drugs, we talked about that. We talked about what he felt like as a parent. If I ever lost her, what that would do to her. We had those conversations as a 5-year-old. And what I've learned as a counselor is 15 minutes of embarrassment with your child, with a conversation, with another parent, could save you a lifetime of tragedy or a lifetime of heartache. 15 minutes. Embarrassment will fade. And that social issues in the high school, and believe it or not, those fade too. They're not as easy to get over. Your kid may miss a party or two. They may have struggles sometimes in there, and that's all part of growing up, and it is painful, and it is terrible to witness as a parent. It's awful to go through as a teenager. But that will fade, and it will create resiliency, and it will build coping skills for your students when they leave and go to college and become adults and have to make decisions where you can't catch it and you won't see it and you don't know it's there. So 15 minutes of that uncomfortable, or 2 weeks of not being part of a group, or maybe not having your best friend for a while and having to find other friends, does create resiliency and coping skills. And it's uncomfortable and it's painful to watch, is what stops us a lot of times. So hold on to that, because your children will grow up and they will make good decisions. I've been ostracized. I've been without parents. I've been that neighbor. I've stopped those kids. Those kids still talk to me. They've come back from college now, and we've talked about things, and we've opened it up. But those are the pieces to hold on to. And if you really want the coalition to grow legs, and I know we need to start at elementary, but you need to bring high school students with you next time. Or you need to bring your middle school students with you. They need to be part of creating a pledge, and you will get safe homes in a directory where it won't be as much of an issue. Let them have a voice, because remember, you've got about 75 to 80% out there that will support this, even though they won't say it. If you can bring them together, they have a stronger voice, and they'll create that amongst themselves, and they will be able to walk away and say no and make better choices. So, thanks.
Well, I think we should wrap it up, but I want to urge everyone to fill out the survey. If you signed in with your email, now you're on the list. So you are part of this coalition, and when we start to get our thoughts together for the next meeting, you'll get an email, and I encourage you to come, email back, give us ideas, suggestions, and if you are willing to, do a little bit more work, please contact any of us. We have a lot to do. We have a website to get going. We have planning to do. So as much as you can give, we'll take. And thank you all for coming. I mean, this is a great turnout. I think we can all agree that there's consensus. This is an important issue, and we're just getting started. So thanks again for coming.